the ever-pulsing heart of New York City, where skyscrapers sliced the clouds and traffic hummed like a restless river, two heroes carved from different cloths protected its people. One swung silently through the sky with grace and agility. The other walked its streets, unshakable and immovable, a modern titan forged of flesh and steel. Spider-Man and Luke Cage, friends, allies, brothers in arms. But even the strongest bonds can snap when tested by fire. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, had recently returned from a harrowing mission with the Avengers in Latveria, where a reality-warping device had nearly torn the multiverse apart. While the other heroes dispersed to regroup, Peter had only one thing in mind: home, Aunt May, MJ, his students, and maybe, just maybe, a slice of Joe's famous pizza. But home had changed. Hell's Kitchen and Harlem were under siege, not by aliens or monsters, but by something more insidious. A rising syndicate known as the Midas Circle, led by a faceless figure who operated in shadow, but whose influence corrupted every level of city government. Entire city blocks were being gentrified overnight. Families disappeared, crime soared in poor neighborhoods, and the police turned blind eyes. Spider-Man began investigating, tracing shell corporations and digital footprints. All clues led to one man in Harlem who seemed unshaken by the chaos: Luke Cage. Now a community leader and de facto protector of Harlem, Luke had grown weary of capes and councils. After the collapse of Heroes for Hire, he decided the only way to protect his people was to work within the system, using his influence and fists to broker peace and scare off threats. But something didn't sit right with Peter. Citywide intel, from SHIELD intercepts to Daredevil's whispers, hinted that Luke had struck a deal, albeit unwillingly, with one of the Midas Circle's key agents. Maybe to protect Harlem, maybe to shield his daughter Danielle from danger. But the result was the same. Luke was now unknowingly being used as a pawn, providing safe zones in Harlem that allowed the syndicate's operations to flourish under the guise of peacekeeping. When Peter finally confronted Luke on a moonlit rooftop in Harlem, it wasn't a fight. It was a conversation. Peter pleaded with him, laid out the evidence. Luke refused to believe it. "You think I'd ever cut deals with people who poison our streets?" Luke growled, his golden hoodie billowing in the wind. I think you're being used, Luke, and you're too stubborn to see it," Peter said quietly. But things escalated when Spider-Man revealed he'd planted tracers inside several of Luke's recent shipments, cargo that Luke had personally guaranteed as safe. One of them contained experimental neurotoxins masked as pharmaceuticals. Children were hospitalized. The line was crossed. Luke's eyes turned cold. His fists clenched. The ground beneath him cracked. "You crossed the line, Spider-Man." "No, they did. I'm just trying to make you see it before you become part of it." They parted ways that night with tension hanging like a guillotine. Across rooftops, the city held its breath. Meanwhile, deeper within the Midas Circle's lair, the mastermind behind the chaos, a man known only as the Gold Bishop, watched gleefully from his surveillance hub. His plan had worked better than expected. Two of New York's mightiest heroes now stood at odds, distracted, divided, and once they clashed, the fallout would shatter what little resistance the city still had. Back in Queens, Peter wrestled with guilt and urgency. He knew what was coming. Luke wouldn't let this go, not after the breach of trust, but he also couldn't stop. The Midas Circle's next move was imminent, and Luke's continued cooperation, even if accidental, could doom the city. In Harlem, Luke sat in silence in his daughter's room as she slept peacefully, unaware of the storm outside. His wife, Jessica Jones, had warned him, "Pride can be as dangerous as bullets, Luke." But he was tired of being second-guessed. He was tired of outsiders telling him how to protect his own, so the stage was set. Two heroes who had once bled side by side now stood at opposite ends of the battlefield. One believed in transparency and risk, the other believed in strength and control. Both wanted to protect the city, but only one could be right. And as dusk fell over New York City, the air thick with the tension of a storm not yet arrived, all roads led to the abandoned Brooklyn Navy Yard, where both men would finally confront the truth, not with words, but with fists, fury, and years of brotherhood shattered under the weight of conflicting ideals. Tomorrow, the web would clash with the unbreakable. Tomorrow, Spider-Man would fight Luke Cage. The wind howled through the hollow remains of the Brooklyn Navy Yard, where rusted cranes stood like ancient titans watching over the battlefield to come. Moonlight cast long shadows across cracked pavement and forgotten shipping containers. This was neutral ground, away from the media, the people, the distractions. Just two men, two ideologies. One truth waiting to be punched into the light. Spider-Man arrived first, crouched atop a derelict crane. His suit, recently updated with reinforced webbing and kinetic dispersal pads, shimmered with blue lines pulsing gently through the red. He was focused but troubled. Luke had once stood with him against the worst the world had to offer. Skrulls, symbiotes, Sinister Six. But tonight wasn't about villains. It was about accountability. Luke Cage stepped out of the shadows like a moving mountain. Clad in a reinforced gold and black hoodie with unbreakable boots, he radiated power with every footstep. His eyes locked on Peter. No anger, just disappointment. "You should have come to me, not gone behind my back," Luke said, his voice low but thunderous. "I did come to you, Luke, but you refused to listen," Peter replied. "And now, too many kids are in the hospital because we waited." No more words. With a seismic roar, Luke lunged forward, tearing up the ground behind him. Peter backflipped from the crane as Luke's fist demolished its base with a sound like thunder. Webbing shot out in bursts, thick, rapid strands aimed at binding Luke's arms, but Luke flexed and ripped through them like tissue. Spider-Man knew better than to trade blows directly. Luke's strength was monstrous, rivaling the Thing on his worst day. Instead, Peter danced, flipping, rebounding off walls, using agility and speed to land stinging web-enhanced strikes to Luke's pressure points. But Luke wasn't slow. He adapted. On his third charge, he feinted left, ducked Peter's vaulting kick, and caught him mid-air, slamming him into a container with bone-rattling force. Peter gasped, vision blurred. His suit absorbed the brunt of the impact, but pain still bloomed across his ribs. "You really think this is helping, Pete?" Luke growled. "Not helping you, maybe," Peter wheezed, launching two web bombs that exploded in Luke's face with concussive force. Luke staggered, dazed, and Peter took the opening. He unleashed a barrage, fast spider-strength punches infused with web sting bursts to disorient. Then he flipped behind and laced Luke's legs with reinforced webbing, yanking him down and trapping his arms with tensile steel-threaded strands. For a moment, the giant was still. Breathing hard, Peter walked over, hand on his mask. "Don't make me keep hurting you, Luke. This isn't who we are." But Luke growled, flexed, and with a brutal roar, shattered the bindings and launched a punch that grazed Peter's shoulder and still sent him flying. Peter landed hard, rolled, and came up with blood on his lip. That's when he knew. He had to end this. He activated the emergency override in his suit, a risky protocol that supercharged his reflexes and strength, but drained his energy fast. Then he set a trap, webbing up the high beams, yanking containers into precarious positions. Luke charged again, full force. Peter ran at him and, at the last second, flipped over, webbed a beam, and swung it downward. The massive steel block struck Luke square in the chest, knocking the air from his lungs and dropping him to his knees. Peter landed behind him, grabbed his head, and webbed his eyes. "I'm sorry, Luke," he whispered. Then, using all the remaining suit energy, Peter delivered a stunning web surge punch to the back of Luke's neck, a move designed to short-circuit even a Hulkbuster. Luke fell forward, conscious but paralyzed. The fight was over. Peter stood above him, panting, eyes filled with pain, not from the battle, but from what it had cost. "You're still my brother, Luke. That's why I had to stop you, before they used you to burn everything we fought for." Luke didn't answer. His pride was wounded deeper than any bruise. Moments later, sirens howled in the distance. Spider-Man vanished into the night, leaving Luke where he lay, defeated but not dishonored.